that's an intro. Every dance has an intro. They're usually about half a step, but the cheat sheet knows better than I do. I'm not a musical expert. So take a look, let me know if you have any questions. A couple other pro tips that I have for you, and then we can talk about maybe some of the tunes that you already know that are dances. So if you were to meet up with a dancer and they say, what can you play for me? You will know. The quick time, that's the other tricky thing. Sometimes there are tunes like put together with the slow steps and the quick steps. So that's something to keep an eye on too. Like we said before, we count everything in steps. So you'll see on the cheat sheet that a lot of these are listed as like, oh, it's a 4-step or a 5-step. That's something that you have to work out together. And we already showed you that Chantru's quick time. Just something about premier dancers is that kind of like that quick, the older dancers like a slower tempo. The older dancers also usually have to do longer steps. So as you get better, you have to slow down your dancing and you have to do more of it, which seems unfair, but that's what it is. For my dancers, are there any other tips that we need to cover on? I think we hit the big ones.
Yeah. I have like a really dumb tip, but it traumatized me as a kid. If you're piping in a competition, I know it's like very common for pipers to keep their beat. Please don't go like heavy, because I've had literal swords bouncing away from me and I hate the sword dance. As a child, I hate it. I still hate it as an adult. That's followed me my whole life. But to see my swords literally shaking and moving underfoot and knowing that if I touch them, I'm immediately disqualified because, and it might not even be the piper's fault. A lot of times these stages are built the morning of the competition and then you're up there and you're trying to keep your beat, but that's the only little tip. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I've had enough experience in it, really.
You're allowed to keep the beat, but don't shake the stage.
Yeah. And I have a lot to think of, we all do, but that's a tip.
Yeah. Another tip I had from a dancer was, so usually in a competition, the poor piper has to play the same tune 8,000 times in a row as each group of dancers comes up and dances. But she told me that at Worlds this year, the piper was playing different real tunes throughout. So there are different tunes, and I would say that as dancers, we are not picky. As long as we can hear the beat and it's the right amount of steps, we can dance to it. So that's a tip as well. Okay. So, question?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know how this affects the competition aspects of this. Like, let's say you have do you have different heats in the competition or something like that? Is that something that would happen? Would it be weird if a piper played a different tune for one heat and another? Would that mess people up?
That is a great question. I think that would be up to the judge. They would get to decide. Yeah, I honestly think that, so it's really broken down into different age groups and then into different skill levels. So I feel like if you were a piper, you could probably best get away with okay, all of the kids who are beginners are gonna get this tune. And then maybe all of the novices will get a different tune. Because I do think unless the judge was okay with it, you might get in trouble for mixing it up a little too much.
So there are certain ones the Highland dances where you play Gilly Cow.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever. So but you have no choice over that. But
yes.
The other ones, I'm sure.
Yeah, and some of them are very set. Gilly Callum is another name for the sword dance, so that one is very much the sword dance. There are a couple tunes that I hear bands play all the time and I immediately start dancing. So the Highland Laddie is a Highland Laddie. That is a dance we can do. So if you're a piper and you've got a dancer, that's an easy one. Also, Scotland the Brave is the barracks for us. The long name is Wilt Thou Go to the Barracks Johnny. There's this whole story about how it was a military recruitment dance. So that's another easy one. However, if you're playing Scotland the Brave and someone wants to dance, you gotta go fast. That's a tricky one. You guys usually do it much slower than we do, so keep that one quick. And then I hear the Flora a lot, and I think that one is called the Atoll Highlanders. So those are three that you're probably very familiar with. that we can do. And that is the base of what I wanted to share with you today. So I'm happy to hear any questions, or if you know any of these tunes and you want to bring it out and you want to try doing an intro and having us dance with you, we are happy to do that. And I'm also just opening the floor up for any other questions you might have.
I have a million questions I'd love to ask, but if anybody wants to go ahead first. All right, great, awesome. So what is the physical fitness routine like for a dancer?
Ooh, great question. So as you can hopefully tell from our dancing, it's very strength-based, right? We're on the balls of our feet all the time, so we get very developed calf muscles. So we do a lot of releves. It's also very quad heavy, so lots of squats. And while we do use our upper bodies, it is very strong in the core. So any class that I'm teaching, I always make us do a core workout and a leg strengthening workout. And then it's very stamina heavy. So lots and lots of jumping. I always encourage lots of jump roping. Unfortunately, this type of stamina does not really relate to like running long distances or any sort of other workout. The best way to get Highland dance stamina is unfortunately to do a lot of Highland dancing. So it is very specific that way, and it's very much like a HIIT workout, right? It is like a burst of very intense cardio in one go. So very much a sprint rather than a marathon, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Well,
Yeah, you'll see that Highland dancers often have a similar body type because that is what lends itself best to the dancing.
I have a question as well.
I think I want to get there.
just project your voice.
Yeah, sure. So as pipers, when we practice, we have a tune. We break it up into measures, beats, right?
Yes.
How do you guys do that? I imagine. Right, but like, can you practice like one little shake of the leg or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so we definitely break it down similar to you guys. We usually break it down into steps, and then those steps usually have repeating motions. And so we'll break it down into those various movements, they're called, and really perfect those. So when we danced the fling first step with you, we did the same movement 16 times, 8 times, I can count.
8 times.
It's a shedding, you want to show it real quick? So that movement there makes up like a quarter to a half of a Highland fling. So we spend a lot of time perfecting that movement, right? Just doing like, is your second in the exact spot? Is this really tight on your leg? I'm gonna do it 1,000 times until it's perfect. Are you turning out enough? The joke is that, not the joke, the story behind is that our knees have to be perfectly turned out so you can see the tartan of my kilt and so you can know who my family is. So that's the story, that we have to be perfectly turned out because of that. So yeah, we really work on perfecting those movements and then building them up into the steps that then compile into each dance. Love a technical question.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the fingers. I've heard it's supposed to represent the antlers of a stag, if I'm not mistaken.
There are 2 stories behind the arms. Abby, Libby, you want to give me a third position? So it very much looks like the stag, right? It looks like the horns, the antlers of a stag. So that's one of the stories, that it's kind of like a stag in the woods in the midst of the Highlands. As far as my historical research, there's no real basis for that, but it makes a great story, so I continue to tell it. The real story seems to be that a lot of these dances were done very socially back in the day, and people would snap their fingers as they danced around each other. So it went from like this to a more graceful, ballet-inspired third position like this.
Is there a name for that?
This position?
Yeah.
No.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, the official term is the grouping of the fingers. So.
Okay.
The first finger of the middle joints and the first of your thumb together.
Yeah, so kind of like you were snapping, it's that
The
thumb,
middle finger, first joint.
first joint of your middle finger. And they're curved above your head, and you should see them just out of the corner of your eye.
So they're almost a little forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marty's doing a beautiful job.
Beautiful. And you can have both up, or you can have one down and the other one on your hip.
Or you can have them in.
You can have them right in front of your kilt. You can also have them almost touching, almost kissing. Those are our 5 finger positions.
Any other pet peeves that you have of pipers?
Ooh.
Tonight's the night to get it all out.
This is our
But they don't think they're good enough to pipe for dancers. Anyone can do it, and we want you to try because we love a dance piper.
That's so true. I think if there's one thing we want you to get out of this is that we want to dance to pipers, right? Like we love dancing with pipers. That's how Highland dancing was built. And if you can give us a steady beat and most of the tune, we can dance to it. So we would love to work with any of you, especially as performances. It's so much more fun when we get to dance with a live piper. So that's my biggest takeaway, is that we love dancing with pipers and you are good enough.
Yes.
Are there any tunes that you don't like, that are annoying, that...
I mean, I cringe when I hear a sword, but that's because I hate the sword dance. So I haven't made that clear enough.
Yeah.
So you're gonna show us a short dance then?
I didn't
Oh no, I didn't bring a sword. Darn. I do have to tell you, I was working a pipe competition one time with a fellow dancer of mine, and both of us, a couple hours into it, we were both feeling really sick. We were like, I don't know what's going on. I just do not feel well. And we realized that we had been conditioned that when we hear live bagpipes, it means we're either about to compete or we're about to perform, and our bodies were automatically just so nervous that we felt sick. And we were like, this isn't good. So I'm trying to grow out of that and love piping again. But it can, the drones can just,
It can.
yeah,
It is a trauma response.
automatically the heart starts beating faster.
Do you have any other tips that you can say to pipers to help you out, besides keeping a beat and stuff like that?
Yeah, the biggest thing is keeping that strong beat.
Yeah.
And then I guess just communication with us beforehand to make sure that you guys know what you need to know for the steps and the bars and the intro, so we feel confident. But I've also danced with pipers before where I'm like, okay, they've got the intro, they've got the steps, just stop piping when I stop dancing. And that works out too.
Another thing I've noticed too is some pipers we've worked with, I think I've projected kind of on them, is that some of them, and I don't know if it's nerves, because we're nervous too for performing, is I've been with plenty of pipers where the tune gets so fast at the end. It's just a standard fling. Yeah, I figured as much. It's like a 4-step fling, and all of a sudden I am that shedding you saw is just this, it's flicking around because I know something's off or whatever. We just like to get to the end. So again, we're all nervous, but that's one thing I've had happen a handful of times. Where it's a little tough. And then,
Do you find that sometimes that you go too fast because you're nervous?
I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. I listen to the piper and
Okay.
I go with what the piper's doing.
'Cause-
I don't know how to count. I think someone asked what do you say in your head when you're dancing? I'm not going 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm literally going point, behind, front, behind. I'm doing the steps in my mind I never counted.
The lyrics is what I call it.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I'm asking too is because I've heard there's a phenomena, it's psychological, that when the adrenaline's kicking in, your perception of time actually changes. So you're like, oh, I'm gonna play it slow. And it's like,
Yeah, and then
fast.
for us it's the opposite. When is this dance gonna end? I'm dying. Let's get through this.
It is pretty amazing how into autopilot we can go when we're dancing. Because we performed at Long Island Highland Games, and there were at the end of our set we had a bunch of little kids come on stage who didn't know how to dance. So we're like teaching them as we're dancing, and so I was like just having them spin in circles and jump, and I was like, telling them what to do as I was dancing, and somehow I got through a full fling while talking to little kids and like not even really paying attention or registering what I was doing. So I don't know. It's just like you hear the music and your brain, like we have the muscle memory that the minute that music hits, like our brains are just like going, like know what to do. So we're concentrating on the music more than anything.
And I think too, I was always taught as a kid learning how to dance that the piper is always right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we are
I
trained.
like this. This
Yeah.
is really good.
That's true.
That whatever beat that they're giving us, that is the one that we are.
If you're not on the beat, you're wrong. Yeah, that's correct. Because sometimes you are nervous and you're getting ahead of yourself, and then we all look like popcorn on
Yeah,
stage.
it was like the first thing as like a little like beginner dancer that I at like 7 years old or whatever that I really struggled with was keeping the beat because I have no natural rhythm or didn't.
Same.
And so I would like my mom and my brother when I was like in the car and stuff listening to even just any music on the radio, that's what they were teaching me like right at the beginning was just to like hear the beat in any music so I could stick with any music.
What would you say are like 3 go-to tones that every piper should know?
I'll leave that to Emily.
Ooh, that's a great question. If you can give me any sort of Strasbourg, like orange and blue, I don't know any other Strasbourg tune names.
Heel row is a good one.
What is it called?
Heel row.
That's not as big, is it?
It can be played.
Okay, I just listened to Missy where he was Simon Fraser playing it as a sorry. But also Loudons
Yes.
is good.
Which
What's
one?
it called?
Loudons.
Loudons.
Bonnie was in Ray. Bonnie was in Ray.
What dance is that, do you know?
It's just when there's just Ray.
Just Strasbourg.
While dancers are dancing, first thing you do is like,
Ooh.
but you'd recognize it if you heard it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, a lot of our dances are Strasbourgs. Yeah, so we can do them. And then I think like it's great that you guys always know the Highland Laddie or Scotland the Brave, like those are classics for us. And then if you want to be a dance piper, I would do the Gilly Callum because you gotta know a sword dance. And yeah.
I mean, I feel like a fling is like being able to pipe for a fling is like gotta be number one because that's gotta come. It's the classics, what everybody wants to see, and then second, everybody wants to see a sword because it's got props, which everybody likes to see. So
Everybody likes a little danger.
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there differences how men and women dance?
Technically, no. Technically, we should all look the same. It's very standardized that way. However, if you see a male dancer next to a female dancer, they really have that power. And Highland dancing today really looks for the like power and strength. So I don't know who came up with this, but for example, in the sword dance, we dance around the sword at the beginning, and we do things called high guts. And in the middle of those high guts are a leap. Do you want to?
No.
You demo?
No.
I can try them, yeah.
You're living good.
I can try.
Just give me like 2 or 3.
I can't. I have one.
So she's literally leaping between those movements. And if you've ever seen a really strong male dancer do it, it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous because they just have that strength a little more naturally.
Yeah.
But yeah, technically there should be no difference.
And like the one big difference between men and women is just in those like national dances where we're holding a skirt, they're obviously not holding a skirt, male dancers. So we often talk about doing like, if we're doing a national dance while wearing our kilt, we'll do boy arms. So they'll often just have their arms in first on their hips versus out here.
Yeah, so no matter what, the men are in their kilts except for those character dances. So they always have to do arms, where the girls often hold their skirts in those.
So some men dance in trews. I've seen national dances with men in trews, but it's very uncommon.
Yeah. Who needs truth?
What do they wear for the Irish Jig?
Trews.
Yeah, they have like red or green.
Knickers and
Okay.
socks,
Knee
socks,
socks.
and like a waistcoat.
They also get a
A cap.
crop
They
in
get a
that
crop.
dance.
Yes,
they
they
get
get
a little
and like
shillelagh.
a
Shillelagh that they go way
And they
around.
literally like twirl it around the whole dance. It's so fun.
Yeah,
But they do have to wear the heels.
And they get to hit their shoe with their shillelagh. It's cool.
yeah. Although if you drop the shillelagh, you're disqualified.
Yeah, that's so fun. It is impressive though.
Yeah, that's the other reason we are all scared of the sword dance. Because in competition, if you touch it, you lose points, and if you kick it, you're disqualified. And at the highest level, if you touch it at all, you're immediately disqualified. And sometimes they jump around the stage.
Sometimes. I'm not traumatized.
How would they know if you touch it? Are there like sensors
You can
on
hear
it?
it. Yeah, it's metal on metal, so you can hear it.
Okay.
Although, if the judge didn't see it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's true.
So, my teacher always said, you gotta keep going.
Although at my very first dance competition, I kicked the sword into the judge.
I was trying to take out the judge.
Maybe that's where my trauma began.
I stopped in the middle of the fling and put my finger to my head, pretended I was thinking to remember this stuff.
Can you?
Nothing was going. Nothing was going. It wasn't a great day.
We're probably going to wrap it up in a second, unless you have more to present. But could you talk a little bit about the grading system and like how would a person progress to like premier dancer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are several levels. You start, if you're a very, very wee little kid under 7 years old, you're a primary. And once you're above 7, you start at the beginner level. What you have to do is go to enough competitions and place well enough to get 6 stamps on your card, and then you get to move to the next level, and that level is the novice level, which is where Heather is right now. And it's not always easy, especially as an adult dancer, because they don't always have adult levels and kid levels, so you have to compete against these really good 8-year-olds. So once you've reached the novice level, you get 6 more stamps. You get to graduate to be an intermediate. At an intermediate level, it's a time thing. So, I haven't reviewed the rules recently, but I think you have to be an intermediate about a year, unless your teacher is like, oh, she's good enough, and bumps you up. And then you get to become the premier level. Once you're a premier, you're there forever, and it's broken down by age groups. So I started as a premier when I was 11, and there is an 11 and under group, and then there are various levels as you go up. And right now it's 18 and over is the highest level, but they're starting to bring in older levels because dancers like us are still dancing, and there's a big difference between an 18-year-old's body and a 35-year-old's body. So it can be hard to compete against each other. But right now, those are the levels. And I think it's really good that there are more and more older dancers still competing. Because it used to be this myth that like once you're 18 and over, you're like out to pasture. But that's just
not true.
That's just not true.
Kind of like modeling.
The current Highland Dance World Champion is a 33-year-old mother. So just saying that. And and she's the most winning or whatever. She's like her 7th adult
Like her
champion.
7th world champion.
She's breaking all sorts
Yeah.
of ceilings and telling all those youngsters like, I've still got it.
Yeah, and that's something that we are really big ambassadors for, is that you can continue to dance as an adult. And even if you're not competing, you can continue to spread the love of Highland dance. And that's why we love performing so much, is because we just get to bring that joy to the events that we do. And hopefully you guys can see that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you!
I got one more question. How do you think, for a bagpiper, perhaps exploring getting into dancing might help them progress?
Yeah, I think it would give you a more intimate understanding of the tunes, right? Like, if I hear a tune that is a dance, I automatically start doing those movements. And some of the tunes will even like tell me what to do. So I know you guys were saying that sometimes you kind of like tune it out. But for example, in the last step of the sword, it's always that same tune. And the tune literally changes as you do it. So it's very much, I'm gonna attempt to demo while I do this. So the tune is very much like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it literally matches the dancing. So I think as a piper, if you understand that, you might like feel the tunes a little more.
And the jig and the hornpipe, you can definitely like hear that break coming around, I feel like.
Yes, yeah, the jig and the hornpipe have like where we put in these breaks at the end of each step, and you can hear it in the music. And we're happy to do any like demos if you want to like try piping a dance or do that so you can hear some of those things. But yeah, I think so. And then maybe I don't know, the rhythm thing too can probably help. I know a lot of dancers who, as they get older, end up as drummers in the band. Because if there's one thing we're really good at, it's that rhythm.
Yeah, I know plenty of dancers.
And if
that are
anyone
drummers.
any pipers want to like ever practice piping for dancers, like reach out to us. Like we would be so excited. Like we're just always looking for pipers and always excited to dance with pipers, and like it would be so fun to like practice with
Oh,
you
yeah.
and like
What day of the week do you guys typically practice?
Tuesdays at 7.
This would be our normal time.
Yeah, and feel free to chat with us later. We have business cards over on the table too if you want any of our information. And we are at Scotch NYC across all social media, so definitely connect with us there too.
Does anybody have other questions? All right.
If you didn't get a handout, you want one,
Yeah, I have extras of the cheat sheets should you want them.
Also, there's information about Emily's dance classes over there
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Yes, if you're interested in learning some Highland dancing, there are also flyers over there, and we are happy to show you all the moves.
There
I
you
think
go.
John is
Got
good
it.
for it.
If you can jump,
Yeah, I
you
am. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
One time up and that's.
We've actually prepared a demonstration of the sword where he's going to dance and actually pipe it, and we have to
Love
switch
it.
downstairs.
That would be amazing.
Everyone give them a big round of applause. And hopefully not work tomorrow, because everyone should be buying these ladies.
Oh, I
first
got
tomorrow.
a
Like for real. They were very gracious enough to put this together, to put their time into this and their heart. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really awesome. I think that was great. And yeah, somebody was mentioned maybe we could maybe play Scotland the Brave together, and maybe you could do a dance for that.
Yeah.
All right, cool, awesome. All right.